If you want to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page to gain access to exclusive videos, take part in Q&As, and watch my retrospectives before they go live on YouTube. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City hit cinemas in late November, and finally made its way to the UK on the 3rd of December. There wasn't much hype behind the movie. The first trailer they released was met with a lot of unflattering feedback. From the trailer it looked like a fan film, looking somewhat cheap, and the CGI looked very dated. They quickly rushed out a revised trailer, which seemed to reduce the negativity surrounding it, but most fans of the game were expecting another failed attempt at a video game to movie adaptation. The early reviews published were as expected, with most leaning on the negative side. They all seemed to complain of the poor casting and their characterizations. Combining Resident Evil 1 and 2 into one movie didn't go down well with the fanbase, as the script had left things unexplained and relied heavily on the viewer knowing the backstory to many of the characters, and for those unfamiliar were left a bit lost. It was not all bad though. Some had pointed out that it was more faithful to Capcom's popular video games than the long-running series by director Paul W.S. Anderson, and it provided enough action and horror to keep you entertained. So far it's not performing well at the box office, but with it being made on a low budget, it will easily break even. In the UK, not many of the cinema chains are showing it, and if they are, it's only getting a couple of screenings per day. Wheels were in motion to reboot this series when the last of the current series was coming to an end back in 2017. In December of 2018, it was announced that Johannes Roberts was attached to write and direct the film. Roberts had a number of successful films at the box office, with 47 Meters Down, its sequel, and The Strangers Prey at Night. Roberts was interviewed earlier this year and said what he loved about the games was that they were just scary, and that's a lot of what he wanted, that atmosphere. It's raining constantly, it's dark, Raccoon City is a rotten character. Inspired by John Carpenter's films such as Halloween, Assault on Precinct 13 and The Fog, the director explained that the origin story is a piece divided between two main locations: the Spencer Mansion, the setting for the first game, and the Raccoon Police Department, which appeared in the sequel. Roberts loved the remake of the second game and wanted to carry over the look and tone of that game into the movie. Roberts emphasised that this version has nothing to do with the series that preceded it. He said he had never seen the horror and atmosphere of the games in those movies. What he felt when playing those games, or watching from behind the shoulders of people playing them, he never felt it on the screen, and this is something he wanted to get across with this reboot. Set in 1998, Claire Redfield returns to Raccoon City. Claire heads to Chris's home to warn him about Umbrella's experiments that has apparently leaked into the town's water supply. Chris is not interested in her conspiracy theories and leaves for the police station. Claire gets attacked by Chris's neighbours, who are bleeding and have severe hair loss. Claire escapes, stealing her brother's motorbike in the process. Meanwhile, across town, Leon Kennedy has been transferred to the Raccoon Police Department and is struggling to fit in. There has been reports of bizarre events around the city and an incident at the Spencer Mansion, which the STARS team are told to investigate, as the Bravo team have not reported back after being sent out earlier. A truck driver has turned into a zombie and crashes his vehicle outside the police station, scaring the crap out of Leon. The town falls into lockdown and the chief of police is already trying to escape, leaving Leon by himself. The Alpha team, composed of Chris, Jill Valentine, Richard, Brad and Albert Wesker, head to the mansion by helicopter. They find Bravo team's police vehicle and follow the tracks and enter the dark mansion. They can hear the sound of people moaning in the distance, and they decide to split up to investigate and uncover the hidden secrets of the mansion. Now, going in to see this movie, my expectations were set really low. What I wanted was just schlocky entertainment, so basically it's going to be bad but good, and to be honest, that's kind of what I got. I didn't walk out this movie really annoyed or upset. I was somewhat pleasantly surprised by it, but also had many questions about its direction and the wasted opportunities to really expand on the narrative, to take the fantastic storytelling of the first game in particular and put it on the big screen. I don't understand the producers wanting to combine two games into one film. There is plenty of plot available to take advantage of to focus on for one movie. They want to make sequels, right? So why cut themselves short by rushing through two video game storylines, which results in annoying the fans because so much is left out. I had hoped it would focus on the first game, but upon seeing the trailer, I was left a bit disappointed with its direction to shift its focus onto Part 2 with elements from Part 1. Resident Evil 2 is the most popular out of the series, and the recent remake has further enforced its popularity, so I can understand their attempts to really grab onto that game, but the end result is cutting both games' storylines short. The biggest red flag I had with it was the casting. Leon and Jill are the worst offenders. First of all, they don't look like their video game counterparts, but the main issue is that they don't act like them. Leon is a bumbling fool who is crap at his job and lacks confidence. What the hell were they thinking? Jill is just a generic character who shares no traits to her video game counterpart. It's just baffling why they chose to do this. I can totally understand casting someone of a different ethnicity, but to totally ignore who those characters are is a wasted opportunity. Wesker is kind of halfway there to being like his character, but his whole persona is a bit of a meathead and has this dude-like bro attitude. I did laugh when I saw Neil McDonough turning up as William Birkin, totally hamming it up by the end. Neil seems to be the go-to guy for video game movies now, having appeared in The Legend of Chun-Li and Sonic the Hedgehog. The dialogue in the film does make use of heavy exposition dumps to let the audience know who aren't familiar with the games to be informed of what's going on. Some of it is a bit forced and clunky. What left me laughing throughout is that the film is aiming for a world record of using the F word pretty much every other word that comes out of these characters' mouths. F this, F that, who the F is he, where the F are you going, etc. Now the film isn't a total disaster, it has good photography, it has a number of the crew from the Shazam movie, the production design is pretty solid throughout, it's nice seeing the mansion's entrance and the police station. They look very faithful to the game, but they are very small in scale, and once you go into different rooms, it no longer seems familiar to the game, especially within the mansion. The zombie makeup effects are done well, seeing their eyes bleed and the undead pulling their hair out as they begin to turn into a zombie was a nice effect as they transition. The liquor monsters weren't as bad as I was expecting. It has a really great introduction, as you can't see it at first, but the fluorescent lights are moving as it crawls towards Claire and Leon. A tense moment that works. The final confrontation with Birkin as he takes the virus and morphs into this beast with loads of eyes, yeah, it didn't look great, but his early transformation was produced to a good standard of digital effects. It's just his final form is a bit hit and miss. It was nice to see them make use of Lisa Trevor, who was the daughter of the architect who built the mansion, but this subplot doesn't really go anywhere and is not well explained. Claire finds some old records of the children at the orphanage that Birkin had managed, and I thought they would show more of the experiments, i.e. like the Hunters or the Tyrant, but in fact they do a shot-for-shot remake of a sequence from the fourth video game, Code Veronica, featuring the Ashford twins, as she plays this old projector, which seems to hint that any intended sequel will follow that storyline. Which is interesting because that game did have a great story, but it does seem the film is kind of rushing through these events too quickly. The score by Mark Corvin does a great job of setting the mood, making use of synthesizers, even throwing in sound effects into the soundtrack to puncture the music to kickstart a sequence. I don't recall any themes from the game making their way into the film, which is a shame because those themes are instantly recognisable if you've played the game. As the director wanted to capture the style of John Carpenter and his direction, the music follows suit in many areas. There are a couple of decent tracks on the album release, but I don't think the score really lends itself to easy listening. I do think the film is worth a watch. There is definitely parts of it that will annoy you or leave you dumbfounded on why they made some creative choices if you are very familiar with the games and their storylines, but it was far more entertaining than those other movies, which were just so over the top and had little story. Major continuity issues, they threw characters in from the games, but they were only there by name only. The action was farcical. Mila Jovovich as Alice becomes this superhero who was indestructible, and is probably the most two-dimensional action hero of cinema. Those films were just utter nonsense and bore little resemblance to the games, but can be enjoyed with friends to just laugh at. Welcome to Raccoon City makes a strong attempt to take the source material more seriously. It has the action play out in a more realistic manner, no choppy editing, you can see what's happening, you are not seeing Chris and Claire doing backflips or anything unrealistic. This was directed and edited with some care and attention. There are some creative jump scares, some bait and switch moments to avoid it being predictable. The scene with Chris and his lighter that keeps cutting out was a great sequence. I'm not a fan of the strobe effects in movies, but they pulled off a good action scene with the lights out and Chris shooting his way through the zombies. The director has said to be a big fan of the games, and it's clear he has made an effort to focus on story points from the remakes of Resident Evil 1 and 2, but perhaps his script was changed during the shooting process, or sequences dropped during the edit that resulted in the script not being totally clear, or the producers handed him notes to change things that resulted in his movie that so wants to appeal to the fans being changed, thus it resulted in these silly errors that has turned off a lot of the fans and annoyed them. Overall, it's a so-so effort that is enjoyable but clearly far from perfect. I just wish they had taken the time to really focus the script on Resident Evil 1 and not combine it with the sequel. They could have had the chance to play things out in a slower fashion, to let the story breathe, and help build up the suspense to reveal the hidden secrets of Umbrella. Then I think it would have really worked to prove that video games could be turned successfully into a movie that would please the fans and gain new ones with the general public who are unfamiliar with the video games. But again, it's another misfire. Perhaps with the sequel, they will learn from their mistakes.